gloom on his left. Something was there, 50 feet away, that drew him down through the muck which lay knee-deep in the right-of-way ditch. It was what was left of the cutter's cabin, a clutter of burned logs, a wind-scattered heap of ash. Even there, within arm's reach of the railroad, there had been no salvation from the fire. He waded again through the muck of the ditch and went on. Mentally and physically he was fighting the ogre that was striving to achieve possession of his brain. Over and over he repeated his faith that Nada and the missioner had escaped and he would find them in the settlements. Less than ever he thought of the law in these hours. What happened to himself was of small importance now, if he could find Nada alive before the menace caught up with him from behind, or ambushed him ahead. Yet the necessity of caution impinged itself upon him, even in the recklessness of his determination to find her, if he had to walk into the arms of the law that was hunting him. For an hour they went on, and as the moon sank westward it seemed to turn its face to look at them. And behind them, when they looked back, the world was transformed into a black pit, while ahead, with the glow of it streaming over their shoulders, ghostly shapes took form, and vision reached farther. Twice they caught the silvery gleams of lakes through the tree stubs, and again they walked with the rippling murmur of a stream that kept for a mile within the sound of their ears. But even here, with water crying out its invitation to life, there was no life. Another hour after that, Jolly Roger's pulse beat a little faster as he strained his eyes to see ahead. Somewhere near, within a mile or two, was the first settlement with its sawmill and its bunkhouses, its one store and its few cabins, with flat mountains of sawdust on one side of it, and the evergreen forest creeping up to its doors on the other. Surely they would find life here, where there had been man-power to hold fire back from the clearing. And it was here he might find Nada and the missioner, for more than once Father John had preached to the red-cheeked women and children and the clear-eyed men of the Finnish community that thrived there. But as they drew nearer he listened in vain for the bark of a dog, and his eyes quested as futilely for a point of light in the wide canopy of gloom. At last, close together, they rounded a curve in the road, and crossed a small bridge with a creek running below, and McKay knew his arm should be able to send a stone to what he was seeking ahead. And then, a minute later, he drew in a great gasping breath of unbelief and horror. For the settlement was no longer in the clearing between him and the rim glow of the moon. No living tree raised its head against the sky, no sign of cabin or mill shadowed the earth, and where the store had been, and the little church with its white-painted cross, was only a chaos of empty gloom. He went down, as he had gone to the tie-cutter's cabin, and for many minutes he stared and listened, while Peter seemed to stand without breathing. Then, making a wide megaphone of his hands, he shouted. It was an alarming thing to do, and Peter started as if struck. For there were only ghosts to answer back, and the hollowness of a shriven pit for the cry to travel in. Nothing was there. Even the great sawdust piles had shrunk into the black scars under the scourge of the fire. A groaning agony was in the breath of Jolly Roger's lips as he went back to the railroad and hurried on. Death must have come here, death sudden and swift. And if it had fallen upon the Finnish settlement, with its strong women and its stronger men, what might it not have done in the cabin of the little old gray missioner, and Nada? For a long time after that he forgot Peter was with him. He forgot everything but his desire to reach a living thing. At times, where the road bed was smooth, he almost ran, and at others he paused for a little to gather his breath and listen. And it was Peter, in one of these intervals, who caught the first message of life. From a long distance away came faintly the barking of a dog. Half a mile farther on they came to a clearing where no stubs of trees stood up like question marks against the sky, and in this clearing was a cabin, a dark blotch that was without light or sound. But from behind it the dog barked again, and Jolly Roger made quickly toward it. Here there was no ash under his feet, and he knew that at last he had found an oasis of life in the desolation. Loudly he knocked with his fist at the cabin door, and soon there was a response inside, the heavy movement of a man's body getting out of bed, and after that the questioning voice of a woman. He knocked again, and the flare of a lighted match illumined the window. Then came the drawing of a bar at the door, and a man stood there in his night attire, a man with a heavy face and bristling beard, and a lamp in his hand. "I beg your pardon for waking you," said Jolly Roger, "but I am just down from the north, hoping to find my friends back here, and I have seen nothing but destruction and death. You are the first living soul I have found to ask about them." "Where were they?" grunted the man. "At Cragg's Ridge." "Then God help them," came the woman's voice from back in the room. "Cragg's Ridge," said the man, "was a burning hell in the middle of the night." Jolly Roger's fingers dug into the wood at the edge of the door. "You mean—" "A lot of 'em died," said the man stolidly, as if eager to rid himself of the one who had broken his sleep. "If it was Mooney, he's dead. And if it was Robson, or Jake the Swede, or the Adams family, they're dead too." "But it wasn't," said Jolly Roger, his heart choking between fear and hope. "It was Father John, the missioner, and Nada Hawkins, who lived with him, or with her foster mother in the Hawkins cabin." The man shook his head, and turned down the wick of his lamp. "I don't know about the girl, or the old witch who was her mother," he said, "but the missioner made it out safe, and went to the settlements." "And no girl was with him?" "No, there was no girl," came the woman's voice again, and Peter jerked up his ears at the creaking of a bed. "Father John stopped here the second day after the fire had passed, and he said he was gathering up the bones of the dead. Nada Hawkins wasn't with him, and he didn't say who had died and who hadn't. But I think—" She stopped, as the bearded man turned toward her. "You think what?" demanded Jolly Roger, stepping half into the room. "I think," said the woman, "that she died along with the others. Anyway, Jed Hawkins' witch woman was burned trying to make for the lake, and little of her was left." The man with the lamp made a movement as if to close the door. "That's all we know," he growled. "For God's sake, don't!" entreated Jolly Roger, barring the door with his arm. "Surely there were some who escaped from Cragg's Ridge and beyond?" "Mebby a half, mebby less," said the man. "I tell you it burned like hell, and the worst of it came in the middle of the night, with a wind behind it that blew a hurricane. We've 20 acres cleared here, with the cabin in the center of it, and it singed my beard and burned her hair and scorched our hands, and my pigs died out there from the heat of it. Mebby it's a place to sleep in for the night you want, stranger?" "No, I'm going on," said Jolly Roger, the blood in his veins running with the chill of water. "How far before I come to the end of fire?" 10 miles on. It started this side of the next settlement." Jolly Roger drew back and the door closed, and standing on the railroad once more, he saw the light go out, and after that the occasional barking of the settler's dog grew fainter and fainter behind them. He felt a great weariness in his bones and body now. With hope struck down, the exhaustion of 2 nights and a day without sleep seized upon him, and his feet plodded more and more slowly over the uneven ties of the road. Even in his weariness he thought madly against the thought that Nada was dead, and he repeated the word "impossible, impossible" so often that it ran in sing-song through his brain. and he could not keep away from him the white,